I'm about 20 years into my personal development journey, and on a daily basis, I am holding incredible space for women to do deep, deep healing and to step into the emotionally uncomfortable, messy middle. And this year I decided to lean into something new, and it was a journey to get there. There's something that I call breadcrumbs. These are the little sparks from your soul. This is when you're leaning into really deeply trusting and listening to yourself. And this year, I decided to try a psilocybin ceremony, plant ceremony journey. And it took me until October to get here. And I'm a type of person that completely dislikes trendy things. I love to do everything different. I'm a complete rebel. And I always say that, like, you know, there's just like little baby steps that will get you to where you are. But it does require the art of deep self-trust and deep listening. And I think we all get to a point in our personal development journey, especially if you are, if you're a therapist or a practitioner, or you are used to personal development and you want to get to the next level in your personal or professional life. And this year, I went through a lot of big shit. I started the year having some big, heavy things happening in our home with our children. And I had some health scares earlier in the year, and just like big stuff. And I often see these cycles of like, you kind of like jump into your next level. It's like you go into the deep end of a pool and you're wondering, like, can I actually swim? Like, do I still know how to swim? And you're treading water. And you finally realize that you know how to swim, and you take a moment. And when you take that moment, you're often asking yourself, like, okay, I'm good. I can breathe now. And so this is like life, right? We jump into the deep end of life. We have incredibly stressful situations, and we are just fighting for our lives. We are swimming. And when you do get to that respite moment, you're stopping, and everything that you have been avoidant to or have suppressed or kind of shoved into those pockets of your life will just come up and out. And that's what this year did for me. And I remember I was speaking to a practitioner, and she said to me, whatever happened to you like 6 months ago is now coming up and out in your body right now. And because of my health history, having stage 4 cancer almost 11 years ago, I am incredibly mindful of being proactive instead of reactive. And I was actually having a conversation with someone who came to one of my personal retreats. So this summer I was hosting these deep, intimate healing retreats at our cottage, and a longtime client was there, and she is the type of person who's not into like psilocybin or mushrooms or anything like that. She's actually the complete opposite person. And I started noticing a shift in her personality and her behavior and the way that she was kind of presenting herself. And I thought, there's something here. And I always say, if the desire is inside of you, it's for you. But the reality was, the desire was not inside of me to do a plant healing ceremony. But there was something inside of me that wanted more. There was something inside of me that wanted to get to a next level healing. There was something inside of me that wanted to explore a part of myself that I had not gone to. And I can do all the journaling, I can do all the meditating, I can do all the external things, but I wanted to dive deeper. And I remember, so this is what I'm like wanting you to really listen to, is these aches, these desires, and these whispers. So inside I would always ask myself, or I would always not ask myself, I would always say, I wish somebody held space for me the way that I hold space for other people. And I started to go out and I started to seek mentorship. I started to seek healers, and I found a few, but oftentimes I was met with people who were seeking mentorship from me. And I thought, no, I need somebody that doesn't know me. I need somebody that is in a completely different space. And so when my client, who I was spending a lot of time with at my retreats, told me about her experience, and I could see the lightness, I could see the transformation, I thought, okay, this is something that I'm going to dive into. And I leaned into the whisper. And I remember signing up for the plant ceremony. I picked the date. I was going to do it by myself. And I had these thoughts of, but my life isn't in a crisis. I'm not in a crisis state. I'm not in a bad place. Like, what is this? Like, why? What is this whisper? What is this guidance? So fast forward, and I'll tell you about the experience. But fast forward, on the other side, what I realized is these whispers are there to guide us back home to ourselves. And if I am listening, if I am truly listening to myself, when I'm leaning into those whispers, I realized very quickly that the answers are always inside of me. And so after I ran 3 marathons in 3 days, which I've talked about on the podcast before, a few episodes ago, what that journey was like and what that felt like for me, I realized that, when you start checking off these boxes, these quote unquote spiritual boxes of how you want to feel, who you want to be, like digging deep within yourself, you have to start opening new doors, new opportunities. And so I went to the ceremony. I had the ceremony. It was it was solo. I walked into the studio. It was just me and the practitioner. And I drank some tea, I put an eye mask on, and I laid there for 6 hours. I was wondering, how in the hell am I going to lay here for 6 hours with no food, no water? I did get up in the middle of the ceremony once, wondering if I had to go pee. And so I got up and I stumbled to the bathroom and I asked for help. And I just remember beautiful colors and shapes. And most of the time, I was so afraid to go in because I was scared of the unknown. I was scared of what am I going to find about myself? What am I going to see? Is it going to be scary? And I realized that it's just the fear of the unknown. And so often I'll tell people this and they're like, oh my gosh, I'm too much of a control freak. I could never do that. And I thought, isn't that the point? Isn't the point to do something that scares the shit out of you? The self-discovery journey that's required to get on the other side. And this is what allowed me to surrender to a truth that I have been avoiding for a very, very long time, which was running away from this part of myself that was deeply, deeply proud of the woman that I've become today. And I just remember tears streaming down my face thinking, I'm so proud of who I've become. And too often we are constantly running and running and running towards our goals and our dreams and do, which we need to do. We need to check the boxes. We need to take the action. But when people tell me, I want to feel content, I want to feel peaceful, I want to feel alive, I want to feel energized, I want to feel deeply connected, what you're actually searching for is deep self-connection. And that can only be obtained when you are willing to deeply connect to parts of yourself that you have somehow lost a connection to along the way. And so here you are, or here I was, meeting these parts of myself. And I think I was so scared that I was going to meet parts of myself that were scary. And it was a reminder again that I'm not, the thing I'm afraid of is fear itself. So on the way to the ceremony, I was pretty exhausted. I just came off doing 3 marathons in 3 days. So I was pretty surrendered and primed. And I remember like laying there, eye mask on, just hanging on for dear life. The practitioner told me that I was going to be the watcher of my experience, like the observer of my experience. And I just remember like holding my arms like I was on a roller coaster and just watching and observing. I could see messages. I was like scanning people that I knew, like scanning my body, scanning my children, scanning, and I was like, how are they? And I was like checking in with everybody. It was like I got these messages. And one of the messages that I got was, they have to choose. They have to choose. And as someone who is so deeply committed to helping other people, I walked out of that ceremony with this intent of my job and my purpose in this life, regardless of my children, regardless of my clients, regardless of the work I want to do here in the world, is to be as healthy as I possibly can. And that I am the keystone of the environment. And when I am not thriving, everyone else is dysregulated. When I am not thriving, everyone else in that ecosystem suffers. And I'm not going to say that it was a reminder that taking care of myself is not selfish. In this experience, what I actually realized is I'm being incredibly selfish by pretending that I don't matter and that my needs don't matter. And there's so many other things that happened, but I can honestly say with certainty that it was incredibly healing. I'm also one who, I don't drink. I might have a few drinks a year. I don't like doing anything recreationally. And so going in this was something that I took very seriously, that I wanted to be incredibly intentional with it. I wanted to be respectful of the medicine. And I felt feeling lighter. I felt like there was a weight lifted off of me. I felt like, I was actually talking to a colleague about this, a friend, and she said she had a experience, and what did she say? She said she was craving an exorcism and she felt like she got one. And I just think we're headed into a different direction. I think culturally, we're too surface level. We're labeling kids, we're putting medication to mask symptoms, and in order to get to where we want to go, we have to deeply, deeply, deeply trust ourselves. And when this even comes to like knowing who you want to be, how you want to feel, and getting to your edge of fear, getting to your edge of uncertainty, getting to your edge of like, what is behind that next level? What is behind that door? And so this scared the shit out of me. I was so afraid of the unknown and not being in control, not knowing what was going to happen on the other side. And I was just left feeling so grateful. I will also say that, and I said this to a lot of people, because of the work that I do with women, and the work that I do on myself and the additional support that I get, it may not be entry level for everybody. But if you are somebody who has done a lot of deeply personal work and you are sitting there feeling like you need a next level, consider it. Psychedelics, psilocybin, plant ceremony. You want to make sure that you're being guided by somebody who is a practitioner, by somebody who knows what they're doing, someone with experience and has done the research. But my prediction is that in 10 years from now, we are going to see a huge movement of this, and a movement away from let's talk it out to let's get it out of your body. And I'm a huge fan. And yeah, I loved it so much that I can see how in some way we cause our own suffering, and how most of the time we are shaming ourselves, blaming ourselves, and not realizing that our brain is in this loop and we need to create new neural pathways in order to thrive. And if we're just doing the same thing over and over and over again and expecting a different result, that is literally the definition of insanity. And so I guess the intent for this episode is to really help you understand and lean in that it's not your fault. As a human being, we experience trauma, and our children experience trauma, and it affects our brain. It affects our brain. It affects our bodies. The emotion gets trapped in the body, and we can do all the tools to get the energy moving, but deeply there's something else that is required in order to sometimes pluck it out. And when we learn that we can pluck it out, this is literally where I say the magic starts to occur. Going back to that client of mine who introduced me to it, which other people have introduced me to it. And I watched and observed my resistance. And I was like, absolutely not. Nope. I'm not into that. But I would always think about it. And so when I think about something, I call that a breadcrumb. I'm like, it's not going away. Why is this desire of mine not going away? If somebody asks me to do something and I say, no, thank you, and I never think about it again, it's not in my vortex. It's not there for me to acquire. But if someone invites me to something or gives me an invitation and has planted a seed, and that seed is now starting to grow with curiosity, it is my sign. I know this because I know myself. It's my sign that I can nurture that seed. So I'm always paying attention to what are the seeds inside, the desires inside of me that want to be nurtured, that are like, I'm curious about that. And instead of avoiding them, which is where I see a lot of people kind of go into avoidance, or they block it, or they say, oh, I could never do that. Observe the avoidance like resistance, like a big shield coming up where you're like, oh no. Watch the energy around that. Watch how you kind of push it away. And I know this about myself, and this is where I'm always reading human behavior. So because I know this, I'm like, interesting. Interesting that when these things come up, I want to push them away. So I leaned in. And I am so incredibly grateful that I tried it. It was the most healing thing I've experienced in a really, really long time. I'm going to do more. I'm actually going to host some of these at the cottage in the summer. So if that is of interest to you, you can private message me on Instagram at Heather Chauvin, CHAUVIN, and we can have the conversation to see if it's a good fit for you. And I truly believe that these little seeds of desires guide us back home to ourselves. And when we deeply, deeply listen, and we've tried all the other things, and you've gained great momentum, but you're ready for the next level, then you got to lean in. You have to lean in, and you have to ask yourself, if I deeply trusted myself, what decision would I make? If I deeply trusted myself, what choice or how would I live my life differently? Or what choices would I make? What would I choose? Because oftentimes I think we say no to things because they scare the shit out of us, when the reality is we are just afraid of fear itself. And the softening and the healing and like all the time that you desire, the energy that you desire, the financial abundance that you desire is all there on the other side of those things that you defend, those things that you want to push away, where your walls come up, where your resistance comes up. I know you're probably going to have a lot of questions about the type of mushroom I did and all those things, so I will message those to you privately. So if you send me a message on Instagram at Heather Chauvin, Chauvin. And also, I just want to talk a little bit of my aftercare. So I remember coming home and being a little fatigued, and I just felt lighter. And I remember the practitioner telling me, the medicine is going to take a little bit. It's going to be in your system for a while, and then it's going to like slowly wear off. And I just remember feeling lighter, and people would come towards me or say something to me or something that would normally trigger me. And I felt softer, like I wasn't so triggered by it. And I thought, wow, is this what it likes? Is this what it feels like to feel free? Like, is this what it feels like to feel emotionally decluttered? So yeah. And I can tell now, even it's been almost 3 months. And even now I feel different. Even now I feel lighter. I feel like I bumped through to a next level. But here's the thing. I don't believe in magic pills. It's not like, an all or nothing. It's almost like you opened your big closet and it was full of crap. And you do an experience and it's kind of going through all your stuff. It's scanning all your stuff and you're organizing it slightly. And then you close the door. And you come back to it and you're like, okay, there's more in here. That's what the ceremony was like for me, that it decluttered some, but there's always more work to do. And that too is also something that I've really embodied this year, is like, life is messy. Growing a business is messy. Raising children is messy. Making money is messy. Relationships are messy. And the duality is, while we're healing, we can also grow. And we have to be able to figure out how to do both at the same time. That, you're never going to be fully healed. You're never going to be fully, quote unquote, fixed, because I don't believe you're broken. I think we all need to realize that being human is messy. And when we can embody and embrace that messiness, that's where the magic happens. That's where we begin to love ourselves. That's where we begin to see and accept. That's where, the pressure is still there, but it can be a healthy pressure instead of a toxic pressure. That's where we make joyful decisions, where we choose to live a life that feels good, that feels aligned. We speak softer to ourselves. We speak softer to others. And yeah, so psilocybin. It was a journey, and it was my first one. Highly, highly recommend. And like I said, I'm going to be bringing in the practitioner, and we're going to host a few ceremonies this summer at the cottage. So you can send me a message, private message on Instagram at Heather Chauvin, Chauvin. And yeah, I think when we live life in alignment with how we want to feel, we have to have courage, deep courage to go after what we want, while also deeply trusting ourselves, trusting the whispers. And that is where true abundance comes.